Yo, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back to another music class. 30 lessons in 30 days here at Know Nothing Music. Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about the signal chain. What is the signal chain? It is where the audio goes. All right. We haven't really done a class before on music technology or principles of acoustics or sound and stuff like that. We've done most of our videos on rhythm and pitch and things like that, general musicality. But this is a lesson that I teach to all my students, even if they're just learning the piano or something like that, to get to them to understand where sound goes, how to manipulate it, especially if they're using some sort of electronic instrument, which most people are doing these days, even if they're playing keyboard. You know, some people, acoustic pianos, regular pianos are less and less popular every year, and most people are going to be buying some sort of electric piano. But either way, a signal chain is always being created, whether you're on an acoustic instrument or electric or whatever. In fact, I'm speaking to you right now, and that means some sort of signal chain is being created. Let me explain. The signal chain or the signal flow, some audio engineers will use that. Signal path is another way of saying it, is the path that the audio takes from sound creation to sound perception. That's a fancy way of saying from start to finish, or the sound is produced somewhere and then the sound is heard or perceived somewhere. So from start to end, that's what the signal chain is. So let me actually just introduce you. I'll just give you guys the lesson that I give to people when I'm teaching them this for the first time. And usually any age will understand this. If you're able to listen, if you're able to speak, you can talk about the signal chain. You might not know the name for it, but let's pretend that we're in the same room together right now. We're not speaking online. We're just in the room together. And I say hello to you. I'm a person talking to another person. Where does the sound start and where does it end? You know, one thing that I can say before we get into the different stages here is that each one of it's a little bit not subjective, but undefined, whether does it start in my brain? Does it start in my windpipe, in my voice box? Where does it travel? The number of stages can be sliced into infinite number of stages, and that's not the point. The point is to break them into their clearly defined stages to talk about where they go. So we're in the same room as each other right now, and I say hello to you. In my opinion, the sound starts at my brain. That's where it generates what I'm trying to say, and I plan out what to say. I'm planning to say hello. I say hello. And then the air kind of powers the sound, and we'll get to what powers it in a second because it doesn't have to be necessarily air that powers it. The air powers my voice box. The word hello, moves. I shape it with my mouth. It goes through my mouth into the air, into your ears, and into your brain, which understands the word hello. So I would argue that signal chain is brain, voice box, mouth, air, ears, brain, or a 6-step signal chain or signal path. And what I just described is by far the most simple signal path or signal chain that one could describe. It's just a person talking to a person. But if you understand that principle of it's starting somewhere, it's going through a finite number of stations to where it is heard, that's you understanding the simplest signal path. And all signal paths or signal chains it's just a matter of adding different stations to get from the beginning to the end. So let's go through another one. I mean, right now, in reality, I'm speaking into a microphone, and you're listening to this video either through some headphones or through some speakers. So let's go through the stations of this signal path that we're doing right now. I'm saying hello, brain, voice box, mouth, into the air, into this microphone, into this cable right here. Then it goes down through an audio interface, which is the box that hooks up my microphone to the computer, goes into the computer, and each one of these do have a cable connected to it, which goes back to my previous point where defining where do I talk about the cells in my brain? Do I talk about the molecules in the air? Do I talk about the components to the microphone? Maybe because if you build microphones or if you repair microphones, you might need to know what is wrong with the said microphone, or if there's a frayed part of the cable, things like that. You can get pretty detail oriented with this, but for our first time signal path or sound technology class, we don't need to understand all that. We just need to understand the big nuts and bolts. So going into the microphone, into the cable, into the audio interface, through a cable, into the computer, then it goes out into the internet, right? And maybe we'll do another class one day about what gear I use and how it's all converted from analog sound to digital sound, but that's not today's class. Into the computer, into the interface, or excuse me, into the interweb, the interwebs, into your computer, into your headphones or your speakers, into the air, into your ears, into your brain. The point of that is not to like that you need to write all these down. The point of today's class is to understand what the signal path is and that there's multiple stations that go from sound creation source to sound perception or where you're hearing it. So one final word before we end this video on what the signal path is we talked about these stations or the big parts that the sound can travel to make up your signal path. The last thing that we're going to cover today is what's called a gain stage. Okay, we're not going to give you the textbook definition of what gain is today, and audio engineers might not like me for saying this, but you can kind of identify gain with volume today. Any stage in the sequence where the volume or the signal strength, it's really what gain is signal strength or signal weakness. It's a dial. I mean, if you look on a mixer, if you look it up online, a gain knob, it's now when you manipulate gain up, it does increase the volume, but it's not the exact same thing as volume or loudness. But for the purposes of today's video, gain and volume are basically synonymous. A gain stage is any place in the signal chain that your gain or your volume can be manipulated. So if we go back to our most simple signal chain, the gain stage is my voice. I can choose to be louder or choose to be quieter, right? And other than that, I'm trying to think of it. There's no other gain stage. There's a single gain stage in that. It still has the same stages: brain, voice box, mouth, mouth, air, ears, blah, blah. But the gain stage would be the amount of air I push through it, right? The amount of air that I push through my voice box that allows it to get louder or get softer. But as you get into your next signal chain, I'm speaking into my microphone. There's a gain stage at my voice box, and there's also a gain stage at the knob on my audio interface. You can turn up the gain. There's also a gain stage at the volume settings on your computer. There's also a gain stage at the volume of your headphones. So gain stage is any station in our signal path that can increase the volume or conversely decrease the volume of the signal being put through. So what we're looking at here, just to wrap things up, is we have a single sound source and a single hearing source. But there's other situations where you're going to have more than one sound source, 5 microphones going into a certain speaker, okay? You could also have 5 sound sources, 5 microphones going into a thing called a mixer, which splits the signal into multiple speakers. So what we're describing today is what I call a 1-by-1 signal path, where there's one audio source and there's one perception place that it's being heard from. But it can get very complicated, but it doesn't get any more complicated than understanding the signal chain. You can have a 5-by-5. There's 5 mics going into a mixer that splits it out to 5 speakers. But still understanding the purpose and the function of the signal path is essential. It's happening anytime you're doing music. It does not matter what instrument you're doing. All that matters is that you're anytime music or sound is happening, a signal path, signal chain, or signal flow is happening, and it's where the audio takes. The path that the audio takes from sound creation to sound perception and all the different stages in between. So that's the video, guys. If you want to hit the like button, hit the share button, and maybe leave a comment down below telling me what I should cover next in my next video. We're going to do 30 lessons in 30 days. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time.